Hello, welcome to another video on my channel. Today is not a vlog, it is just a sit down talking video, which I have barely ever done. I've barely, just never really done these kinds of videos, but I do a lot of this with my work, of course, with masterclasses and stuff like that. But this one is more specific. I have done one masterclass, like a bit of a story on my life, especially more revolving around mindset and what has taken me, but I'm going to hone in a lot more on my fitness journey, which will obviously encompass a lot of mindset because that is the core pillar of everything, I believe. So there will be a lot of that, especially because I will be talking about my experience with disordered eating, but I do just obviously want to preface, as you probably already gathered, that this is just my story, my experience. You might hear pieces of advice or lessons that I've learnt, but just know that it's just my piece of the pie, and take whatever you want, leave whatever you want as well. So I'm just gonna riff a little bit, and for the most part I'm sharing my experience so that people don't feel alone, also so that people can get to know me better as a coach, as a person, know my background, and a bit as well as to why I think like this now, have the perspectives that I do, and want to help people, because I've obviously gone through a lot myself as well. So let's take it on back. Let's not go back to when I was born, because I don't remember her to be quite honest. Let's start when I started going to the gym or started exercising intentionally, outside of primary school, where you have to, because that's really where my journey, I suppose, begins with fitness, is when I intentionally chose to start exercising for whatever reason. And my first point is that the reason I started to exercise was out of a place of hate. I hated my body, I hated who I was, I never saw myself as good enough. I exercised, and actually I think I started running first, because that was the fix, that was the thing to get skinny, which is what I wanted, which is what I wanted to be valuable, be seen as worthy to other people. So it was firstly not for me, myself, and it was also out of a place of hatred for myself. So not a great start, but it obviously had to happen. I'm so glad that I went through whatever that was. It didn't even feel heavy at the time. I've gone through phases later on where it felt heavy, but it was just so normal at the time, because of course you're not good enough, because of course you need to go for a run to be worthy. It sucks that it was normalized, but that was just what was in the magazines, what was on TV at the time. And this was, maybe 2013 or so. And I would do that. I would do squats and sit-ups in my bedroom. I would do these arm circles until my arms burnt, because I thought that was burning the fat in the areas that you could feel it. And that's where I started, because I was 12. In 2014 I was 12. I would have probably started 11 or 12. I remember I actually joined a gym when I was 12. I remember sitting there, and I think I had to be 13, or maybe I had to be 12, but I was still 11, one or the other. And they were just because it was an estate gym, within the housing estate. So because my mum was going with me, he allowed me to go there earlier. So I was 11 or 12, and went to the gym with my mum, my sister. We were all getting in on the grind, and I guess we all probably had skewed perspectives, or perception, of the fitness industry and what makes you healthy, what actually progresses you toward the goal that you actually want, not the one that you think that you want or need to have to be worthy. But again, it was just so normalized. So as well, when I asked for advice on how to grow a bum and grow muscle in the areas that I want, or lose fat, whatever, our solution, we had this little calorie book, this book that was tiny, it would not have had all the foods. It was a dictionary, but it was for foods, and it tells you the calories that are in it, Yeah, so would like just find the closest thing. And to me now, I'm like, you can't really do that because there's so many different brands, and one brand of cheese or crackers or whatever it is going to be completely different to something else. And as well, the grams, like the grams of chicken will give you a different amount of grams of protein within that, and like 30 grams of chicken versus 150 grams of chicken will obviously be completely different. And that's just the knowledge I didn't have, which is fair as well. Like, again, it was what was normal at the time, so we were counting the calories from that, and I think it wasn't overly obsessive. Like, I'm not going to dramatize that part of my life. It was just, you know, a normal thing to go to the calorie book, look into it, didn't really have any knowledge, didn't go to a coach or anything like that. Went to the gym maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times a week for 1 or 2 weeks, and then would fall off for a couple of weeks at a time maybe, and then would get back into it, do all the cardio. And I remember my sister and I used to go on the elliptical, take turns, and would say like, yell at me like that I'm fat and that I'm lazy and all that to motivate us. And it was like a bit of a goof, like it was kind of for shits and gigs, because I don't remember us lasting very long. Like at a time it was more just like, it's just a funny thing. That I think that's what we would have seen on Biggest Loser, I suppose. Like that's probably one of the, I think because that was a big thing at the time, and I think we watched that. Yeah, so it was like that kind of negative reinforcement motivation, and can still work for some, not for others. It really depends on how you view it. Yeah, I find the honesty approach is better than positive or negative reinforcement. I'm like, just be honest, because you don't want to warp people's perspectives as well, or create negative relationships with any of these words too. It can traumatize people, like in my experience at least. And it also, yeah, puts a negative connotation on the word fat. Like, you need to eat fat to, like, fats, the dietary fats. You need that, this is just a tangent, you need that to be healthy. You also need a level of body fat percentage to be healthy. Like, there's obviously excess, but there's also a level where you'll be too lean. So you need fat to be healthy. And sometimes it might be more than you think that you need, or less. I don't know what you're thinking. But yeah, I remember those times. And then I think by the time I was 14 or so, we had started going to a different gym. I don't know, maybe it was when I was 15. Yeah, it would have been when I was 15. Went to a different gym as we moved houses, moved location. And then we got a PT there, because I think initially it was included in the gym, then we all just had the same PT. He had the same last name as me, so shout out to you, HBond. He was a legend. I think I still follow him on Instagram. He's still a coach. I mean, it's not been that long. It's been, maybe 6 years? Not that long. But yeah, started out with him, and I think that's when I started to actually take it a bit more seriously and realize what it actually took, and got a bit more realistic view, which is why I preach so hard just getting help from the get-go. Because of course, I mean, I'm not going to blame my 12-year-old self for wasting time, because she acquired some knowledge in that time, or experience at least, knowledge for what doesn't work perhaps too. And also, like, I wasn't at a gym where there was a PT. I didn't have a job to afford one or anything. But when you are starting, if you can afford it, or at least like take advantage of the free PT session that your gym might hopefully offer, or if there's any sales on, just because then you're able to not only get to know more about how and what it will take to achieve your own fitness health goals, but you'll learn so much more about like the form and like the quality of what you actually have to be doing too, like the more in-depth stuff, which is so valuable. Like, you can be told be in a calorie deficit, you can be told resistance train, you can be told to even like do a deadlift, but you need to also be taught how to do each of those things specifically for yourself, because you can't just I just watched a video, like you can't just go up to someone and say, hey, do deadlifts to grow this part of yourself, because like that's what your goal is. But then like, what if they have a back injury? What if their body proportions are like very long in one area, short in another, so they need specific help on different types of form than someone that has a very like symmetrical, like even body. Yeah, so specific help is necessary, but you don't, and like, I know a big block for people is money, but I mean, you choose what you invest in, so that's completely up to you. I'm not gonna talk too much on that because yeah, you just choose what you invest in, and also there's cheaper options. Like having a PT once a month, once every 2 months instead of every week, because you don't have to, but something is better than nothing, because of course you can go to the gym outside of the times of your PT session. I just recommend getting at least one, or doing thorough research, not just scrolling through TikTok, because also there's a lot of shitty information out there. So do your rounds of information, of research, sorry, and gather what you like. Anyway, back to my story. So it would have been from when I was 15. For a couple of years I was at this gym seeing this PT, I think once a week, once every fortnight maybe, I don't really remember. But he like piqued my interest in competing, like bodybuilding, because I think at that point he had at least competed once. He knew some people that would like come up to him in the gym, and just other people in that gym would speak about competing, and I would see them like, wow, they're freaking shredded, like they look insane. And that's where I was exposed to women being muscular, and women in their 40s as well, like having abs and like big shoulders, and a lot of them might not have been natural, but like, I don't really care. I probably didn't really take that into consideration at the time. It was just nice to see. I wasn't comparing myself, because of course they were also out of my realm of age and experience, but it was nice to see people, like women that were strong and in the gym lifting to get muscle, not to just get a big booty, and not to just get skinny. I'm not saying anything is wrong, because you can also just want whatever you want, but I started in there for the wrong reason. So I refer to those things because I wanted them for the wrong reason. I wanted it to be skinny, and I wanted to just have a big bum for the sake of being liked and valued by others. So it was good for that first exposure of like seeing strong women in there lifting hard, training hard, and so on. But I also at that time, not that I asked him, probably should have, but I thought that like I had to eat eggs, which I hated. I had to eat like specific things and just vegetables and eggs essentially. I don't really know. I think that was my perspective of like bodybuilding. And although I did eat eggs during my comp prep, not for very long, because I think we introduced them, this is a side story, we introduced them at a stage where my digestion was slowing down, of course, because I was like eating fuck all and doing fuck everything, like cardio wise, and like just energy expenditure everywhere. That sounds gross. I don't know why. But yeah, I did end up having to eat egg, but it got taken out because I just would not digest it, because it was like a new food when I was having barely any food. Anyway, moving forward, that phase of my training, I was going relatively consistently, but there would still be maybe every couple of weeks, maybe once a month, I would have a week off, which isn't too bad. And I don't know how, like I don't actually remember, but I do remember going once, sometimes twice a day at some stage. And I don't feel like, I think sometimes it was coming from a place of not necessarily restriction. Yeah, I suppose restriction, or like just overtraining. I think it was coming from a negative place sometimes, but sometimes I think I just enjoyed it. So I'm not going to take that away from myself, or again, like over dramatize it. But yeah, I think that was a good time. And then, it was a fun time, yeah. And then I moved to a different gym toward grade 11, when I was like 17, yeah, grade 12, and I went to a different gym, and that was even more like bodybuilding, and I remember I didn't have a PT for a little bit while I was there, but then I did get one, and I feel like that's when I actually fully pushed myself for consistency, and I would train every day, or not every day, I would train 4, 5, sometimes 6 times a week. And but then again, like because of my low self-worth and like just my extremely fluctuating mental health situation, I was seeing psychologists this whole time, but yeah, but because of my like fluctuating mental health, I dipped completely, and when I would go into my depressive cycles, I would not go to the gym or take care of myself, which are the things that actually help get you out. Long story short. Yeah, but I would, take time off the gym, but I think that was when I was going a lot more consistently, but I would pretty much only train legs and shoulders and biceps, I think. So that's why my quads were very dominant, especially coming into my comp prep, and just when I started being a PT and in the fitness industry more, like people were complimenting my quads a lot. They're like, how are they so big? I remember even Luther, like we met 2.5 years ago, probably a bit over that now, and I remember it was a joke, but I remember him asking me, are your legs, are your quads on steroids, just because they were prominent? And it's because all I would train was legs, like quads specifically, because that's what I enjoyed, that's where the burn was. I liked flexing my quads. I didn't know how to flex my glutes or my hamstrings, like I didn't know how to show that off, so I'm like, I can't even see it doesn't matter. Well, it does. But yes, I loved training quads because you could physically see the muscles popping out a lot more because they're on the front of you, and I was a sucker for instant gratification, so it lines up. And then shoulders, of course, and biceps. I was obsessed with being able to lift, I was so keen to lift 10 kilos in a bicep curl. I don't know, I just remember that being my goal. So yeah, did that, but I did eventually get a personal trainer, I think after I graduated high school, and I was seeing him every week for a couple of months until, of course, COVID came and the gym had shut down. I saw him a little bit after, but then that was in a private gym, but then COVID scared me a little bit and I stopped. But yeah, I remember when I started with him, he also did nutrition coaching. So in the package, I guess, that I had, I didn't really know this at the time, or recognize the value of this at the time, I suppose. He also did nutrition coaching with me, and I would do online check-ins, even though I thought I was only paying. Right now, I'm like, fuck, he wasn't even charging me online coaching. It was just because I went every week to in-person coaching, but it was what he wanted to do. And yeah, but I don't know, it clicked with me a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago, so I'm like, wow, I was getting online coaching and in-person coaching for the price of just in-person coaching, which was just cool. But that's probably just the way he did things anyway. But yeah, I remember being on 1,500 calories and struggling to hit that on the days that I would try, because I was vegetarian at the time, but it was just because of the environmental reasons. I was feeling bad for the environmental impact, and a little bit for the animals, but if I'm being honest, it was more so environment than it was animal cruelty. They kind of both intertwine in some ways anyway, but I am not vegetarian anymore. But yes, I was vegetarian, and that made it more difficult, of course, for an uneducated person to consume enough protein. So I remember every week in my check-ins, I don't even think I read most of them because I just didn't see the value. I was just like, yada yada yada, yeah, eat more protein, okay, cool. I know what I'm supposed to do, but I didn't care enough. Yeah, so I was just trying to eat enough, but wouldn't. I don't think I ever really hit within 10% of my macro targets, maybe if I wung it, but nah. I just didn't really take it that seriously, and I don't think I tracked every day. I was 17, I just didn't really care for it, to be honest. And then I remember before, actually, I've skipped a bit, but yeah, before that, it was after I had graduated. It was probably coming up to when I had graduated. I had broken up with my partner at the time, and I don't remember exactly what triggered this, but it would have just been the fad at the time. And again, it's to be skinny and everything, and especially coming into schoolies, I barely ate over schoolies, and I barely drank either. I drank a little bit, but I barely ate anything. I think I might have had 1 or 2 bananas, maybe 1 to 2 bowls of rice across that 2-week period, 1 to 2 week period. And then, yeah, maybe a couple of drinks of alcohol. So it's still like I had calories, but I barely ate for that period of time. But I didn't feel hungry because I was so motivated to be deemed as worthy to have won that relationship. Because of course, like, not of course necessarily, you don't know this, but he did end up like dating the girl that I was worried about that he like ended up like he cheated on me with, and then they were together, and I knew that they'd probably be at schoolies and that I'd run into them. So I wanted to win that relationship. I wanted to be hotter, and I didn't need to lose weight to do that. And of course you can't necessarily just lose that much weight in a week or two. Like, it was just such a skewed perspective of so many things. But yeah, I was restricting myself, of course, in those times leading up to and during schoolies. Yeah, and we did end up running into them. But yeah, and then we went to Europe just after I graduated, so for a month and a half, and I think for that period of time, like, I still ate. There wasn't as much restriction, but it was definitely still on my mind. I remember just being so conscious, like, oh, I shouldn't eat this because of that, like, I shouldn't eat because then I'll put on this much weight, and like, I was conscious of it. It wasn't eating me alive. I was not I've never ever been diagnosed with an eating disorder, but there was definitely aspects of disordered eating and just a poor mindset and relationship with food, exercise, everything like that in general. And I did train a little bit while I was overseas, but yeah, not enough to do anything, like maybe 5 to 10 times maybe, and some of them was like in apartment workouts, like in the room. But yeah, I'm glad that I was like away on holidays with family during that time, because it could have spiraled to something worse, because we were going out to dinners and stuff like that, and I think that also forced me to eat, which was good, because I remember times where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't eat, but then like I don't want to come across like I'm starving myself, blah blah blah. And this could be jarring to hear for some family members that might not have even known, but I've kind of spoken about some things anyway. For the most part, I've just moved forward, because it's obviously like 3-4 years ago, 3.5 years ago now. But yeah, after graduating, that's when I had that PT that I was just telling you about. And yeah, during COVID, this is 2020 now. During COVID, I stopped training at the gym, but the knowledge that I had gotten from that PT and like the support and just the understanding of exercise that I had, I kept training, and I substituted what I could of the workout program that I had with my coach back in the gym. I did what I could at home. We had a couple of dumbbells. I think by then we had gotten some equipment, like we had like skipping ropes, we had a yoga mat, we had some dumbbells. I think we might have had like an exercise like ball, like a medicine ball, sorry, and maybe some dip bars, which I couldn't really use for dips because I wasn't that strong yet, but I used for like inverted rows and like pull-ups, kind of like supported pull-ups and stuff like that. So did some home workouts, and I did them pretty consistently. Did a couple of HIIT workouts by Sarah's Day. Yeah, so I still trained about 5 times a week. And then my partner at the time, which is the one that I had gotten back with from the schoolies one, which is not something I'm going to get into. That's just a different bad health decision. But he had like home equipment as well, and like a lot more. So he had a barbell and bench press and everything. So did workouts there, which was good. And then I studied to be a PT. I remember because of how much I realized the gym had actually helped me mentally in 2020, and I think it was even COVID, like that initial hit. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize how much I actually enjoyed going to the gym. I've never really sat and reflected as to where that switch was, but I think it could have been that, where as soon as it was taken away from me, I realized how much it actually did for me and how much I enjoyed it. and for like the mental benefits too, not just for the physical. So that's why I stayed so strong during COVID, and like worked out at home, because I actually recognized and loved the mental benefits of working out and feeling strong and seeing muscle growth, like seeing that you're progressing of your own accord. Nutrition, could not have given a shit. Back then, like, no, that was not on my mind. It was like maybe a little bit, but like I knew a little bit now about like MyFitnessPal and how to track, but I don't think I tracked often. And I'd still like, I'd just overeat on some days and then go back to like eating intuitively and like just eating when I'm hungry. But then I would have like big, not binge, but just overeating days, and then I would feel bad. And it was like a bit of a cycle, but for the most part, it was just relatively, I feel like, childish, where I wouldn't really eat many veggies and fruits. Like, I don't know. It wasn't that deep. It was just childish, I'll say, and uneducated. But yeah, I was inspired to, like, I've always known that I've wanted to help other people. Like, in the back of class, from grade 8 even, I would be writing on my laptop, like writing motivational speeches, like, and although I was going through my own shit at that time, when I had my spikes up in motivation, in creativity and whatnot, I would write speeches and want to help people, and I just loved being immersed in that. So and obviously with having PTs in the past and seeing how much they've helped me and are able to help others, I wanted a piece of that. Like, I wanted to, because I knew my own perspective was unique in some ways, I wanted to bring my energy to that world and to this like industry. And I knew that I could help people, but I actually initially only studied PT to be able to do an ebook, because that was what was popular at the time, to do an ebook. And I wanted to be a creative, like, I guess an influencer, like a content creator. Like, I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to take photos of like products for businesses. I wanted to obviously like take photos of models and stuff like that for their portfolios, for fashion labels. But then I also loved YouTube. Like, I've been posting on YouTube since I was in grade 8. So I wanted to do all of that as well. But then I wanted to, put up an ebook, but I had to and wanted to be qualified for that. But I think a lot of the reason why I only wanted to put up an ebook was because I could hide behind that, because I didn't think that I was worthy enough to share information in person. Like, I didn't feel like I was strong enough or looked the part, and that would be because the PTs that I had, I think I might have had 1 or 2 trial sessions with a female, but there were 2 males. They were big guys, and like big muscular guys, and they both had competed. So of course, like, I saw them as like, that's what a PT should look like. I do not look like that, and I still don't look like them, of course, because I'm a female. I have a lot more muscle mass now, but yeah, I'm still not as big as them yet. Yeah, and yeah, so I had that bit of like just a skewed perspective of being a coach and what a PT would look like. But then as soon as I started studying, which was I think June 2020, and I started studying in person and just being a part of that community and seeing like different perspectives of it and where people are coming from, why they want to be a PT, if they even did, or if they were studying it for other reasons, of course. But yeah, and like just being immersed back into the gym again after COVID and seeing more diversity, I think I just fell in love with also just being in person and doing it, because of course studying in person, I got a little bit of that experience, and I realized actually I do know a little bit. Like, obviously didn't know as much as I do now, and I'll never know as much as I will in a year's time, kind of thing. Like, I'll always keep learning. But I wasn't stupid. Like, and obviously I was studying, so then I was immersed in that world as well there, and to learn more. And then I felt like, yes, actually, I do want to help people in person, and I do want to help people beyond an ebook, although I still believe ebooks like can be very helpful. I wanted to help people one-on-one, and with the mindset side of things, like I wouldn't have been able to help people, well, sometimes I would have been able to help some people in some aspects of mindset back then, but it would only be like the start of a conversation kind of thing. I wouldn't be able to finish the conversation, but I'll be able to provoke people a little bit just because of who I am and who I like to show up as. Like, I'm good at provoking people. But yeah, I think to have the impact that I wanted to have, I thought that I had to, you know, be someone else, but I didn't. And like, I just had to remind myself that I'm allowed to start somewhere, and that's allowed to be like, I'm allowed to start out as just a PT, which I wasn't a nutritionist from the start. So I was just a PT, which not just as in like you're not valid, but that was the qualification I had, the Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. So I started working at a gym as soon as I finished studying, and I had worked there for a while. Like, I worked with jets for essentially the last 2 years and almost 3 years, like 2 years and 9 months maybe. I worked with jets, different jets locations. But yeah, I started working at jets there, and yeah, I loved working there, and it was great because then I could also train there and at any other jets too. And becoming a PT and just like having more of those conversations, I learned more about nutrition with it, but I didn't start studying that until the following year. Pardon me. Yes, and then I met Jack, which was my next coach / PT. Like, I think it was just online coaching that I had with him, and we met through work. Like, he started working at the gym there with me, and that's where I started to actually take a lot more notice of nutrition and specifics on macros. Like, I knew what calories were, I knew what macros were, but at that time I was still vegetarian, and I wasn't knowledgeable enough to really be consuming enough protein, like know how to as a vegetarian. So but at that time as well, I was overtraining just because I loved it, but I was like, oh, like, I love it, so it's fine. But then I didn't have enough knowledge around recovery. So and also because of my partner, like, I would train in the morning or like in the middle of the day, depending on like work, and then I'd go train with him again later because he wanted to, and I obviously wanted to train and everything as well. So I would be training sometimes twice a day then, but it wasn't too overtrained. It wasn't coming from a bad place like that. It was coming from an unknowledgeable place where I didn't know that recovery was important, that just because I want to doesn't mean I should. Like, more is not always better. So that was good to figure that one out. And then starting with Jack, him coaching me, where I need water. Starting with Jack and getting coaching was really helpful in narrowing down and just like being in a routine with my training, and that's when my progress really like fast tracked, because I was training and like kind of jumping up my training sessions because I just enjoyed it, and I knew about progressive overload, but I didn't really care enough. I was like, well, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Like, I just want to train the sessions that are written for my clients because they're fun, and I was still like feeling the burn and everything like that, like, but I wasn't really making that much progress because I wasn't eating enough protein, and then wasn't training consistently at the same program in order to make that like optimal progress in an optimal way. So yes, that was good with him, and like doing a meal plan as well, learning about and trying new foods too. I did start eating meat. I said to him, like, I feel like at that point I was like, I'm getting skinny, or like skinny fat, like I wasn't bone or anything, like I had fat on me, but I was not muscular. I was like, I feel like I don't even look strong and powerful, but I want to feel like a weapon. That was always like a big driver for me. Like, I want to feel like confident in going out and like looking like I can handle myself. And also feeling like it, of course. So I said, I don't care what I have to do. If I have to eat meat, just help me out. Tell me what to do. And we did that. And then I think it was maybe a week or two later into coaching, I was like, do you reckon that I could compete in bodybuilding? And he said yes. So we did that. I'll fast forward through a little bit of this because you can go and watch my competing vlogs to see my experience with that. You can literally watch and listen to all of the 20 weeks plus a couple of vlogs before that when I was in my bulk. But yeah, I think I had a pretty good relationship with food and exercise through that because I would just like do what I was told, especially through the bulk because I was consistently being able to eat more. I was like, fuck yeah, and building muscle, saw like rapid progress, rapid depending on your perspective. And then I obviously had my prep, which was the cut, and saw rapid progress with that too because I was following the plan. But where it kind of went wrong, where it went south, and where I learnt a lot of my lessons was I kind of lost sight of not why I wanted to compete, because I still knew why. Like I knew I wanted to be there for the mental challenge, and that's how I was even able to stick it out, or else I would have not done it. But I lost sight of the long-term goal and therefore lost sight of the passion to adhere to things beyond that, which is why after comp I really struggled to adhere to a plan. I had kind of chosen not to previously, like I just didn't commit to that. There was times of like binge eating where I felt like I had no control, but I would be lying if I said every single overconsumption time was binge eating. And again, no diagnosis. I just recognized that, hey, I don't even fucking remember consuming this much food, and it wasn't just mindless eating at times. It really felt like an out of body kind of thing. But I'm also not blaming that part of my life on binge eating like a disorder, because there was definitely times of just consciousness in that where I just chose not to support myself and seek help other places than just comfort in eating, in self-pity essentially in some ways. So yeah, this is probably the part where people might resonate. I'm like, that does not sound right, and I know it's not right. What's the right word? Resonate with the binge eating, because I know that can be so common, or at least like overeating and being like, why am I doing this? Like it just feels so much like second nature. And there's parts to this, like I'm not going to get into the whole coaching side of this because it needs kind of a one-on-one aspect, but part of it is because like you're trained, like you're conditioned to seek comfort and safety, and that feels like comfort and safety for you right then and there. But of course afterwards you feel uncomfortable in yourself and you feel unsafe within yourself because you can't trust that you know what to do with yourself, because of course you're resorting to those things that aren't actually good for your health. So it's hard to build self-trust under those conditions. So there's a level where it is like conditioning and you need to be reconditioned, but also I can't speak to actual diagnosed eating disorders. Like I'm not, that's out of my scope. And this is not that kind of video. I'm just I like helping people and I like talking about self-development, so it just always pops up anyway. Anywho, back to my journey. So the kind of like binging, the overeating and everything, I had gained like 16 kilos in like 2 months, not 2 weeks, after comp. And like I've also still got vlogs up during that time where you'd be able to see it. And I don't really remember the weight gain hitting me personally, like mentally that hard, because I still had I'd done a lot of work mentally on loving myself and valuing myself. Like there was still times where I was like, fuck, I feel like shit. But I more felt shit about not honoring myself and it's not to say that eating a donut is not honouring myself, but it's the consistency of not honouring my health and my values, because that did not, like, the actions that I took there didn't align with my values. It aligned with instant gratification and instant comfort, but that does not align with my value of feeling and looking like a weapon. So that was the hardest part to recognize, that like, oh, fuck, I'm fucking myself over. I'm self-sabotaging. And then that was the initiation to learn how to get out of that cycle of self-sabotage. And then I think it would have gone on for about 2 months or so after comp, into up to about December time. Like, I competed mid to late September. So it would have gone on for October, November. Then by the end of November, I was like feeling a lot more back to normal. My hormones were regulating a little bit. So that wasn't necessarily playing a part, because although my hormones would have played a role in it, it wasn't something to blame. It wasn't like, oh, because my hormones are crazy like this, I can overeat. It will make you want to overeat, but it's not the cause. Like, it's not, it's not the excuse, essentially. And it was something to work with, not give into, which is interesting to put into words now. And if I ever compete again, it'll be interesting to be able to put that into action. So coming out of that and like just finding balance again, and I went through some phases of cutting and maintaining with like, and tracking my calories with that. And like, I had a coach at the time then, and then I didn't, because I just like eased it out. I think I had a coach from end of November or so, or December time, until about May, and then I was like, I'm gonna have a bit of a break. And then I wanted to jump straight back into another coach, or like my coach that I competed with. I wanted to jump back into there to probably compete again within the next year and a half or so. But I had, like, in that first couple weeks back doing that, kind of like a mock prep, trying to remind me what it was like, and in watching like a bunch of the old videos from my comp prep, I was like, actually, I don't want to do this. Like, I remember it had reminded me about the sacrifices that I had to make, and that the sacrifices would be different this time. There would be likely more this time too, because more than anything was more about business. And I at the time I wasn't with Luther, so the relationship side of it wasn't really an issue. I was seeing other people, or another person, but that didn't feel like an issue at the time, apart from the fact that he always wanted to go out to dinner. But then he left the country anyway to work overseas, and we did long distance, so then it wasn't an issue. But the thing was with work, like my businesses, my company, the impact that I want to make was far greater than that desire I had to compete within that time frame. So I decided to not compete, and I decided to just chill and relax a bit, because even the commitment to the idea of competing one day was just too much for me to take on just then and there. So I decided to chill, and then I put myself into a bit of a deficit to just shred some fat. I wanted to, and it was a nice challenge and opportunity to also be a role model for my clients as well, or just people in general that wanted to do it. So I shared a bit of my journey on social media and helped people there. And yeah, I feel that decision, and making that decision for myself to not commit to competing in that moment, and then that phase that I did with myself, it was hard to be in a cut. But what I did was choose one word, choose one value, I suppose, and like feeling that I wanted to commit to, and every decision, action that I made was in honor of that. And that word was comfort, or comfortable, and I could see what that looked like. And it wasn't comfort as in instant comfort and gratification, like what would make me feel comfortable now. It was overall, anytime I was contemplating, like if I was craving to have something that wouldn't serve that, I would contemplate then and there. I'd be like, comfortable. No, like what will make you comfortable long term? Will you feel comfortable in your skin and in your decision, in your body, in your health if you make this decision? If the answer was no, I would move on. And it was simple like that because I was so attached to that goal, which was great. I felt really good throughout that time, and that's what really strengthened my relationship with myself and my relationship with myself as a coach as well. I had so much more trust in myself. Like, I already knew I was a good coach before, but I was really solidified in that. I was like, wow, yeah, like I'm a fucking great coach. And I forgot to mention amongst this, like, I had started my nutrition course and like finished that by the start of 2022. So that's when I started like nutrition coaching. So I was just like more solidified in like, yeah, I do this with my clients, I do this with myself, and I can do this. Like, yeah, it was a really nice time. And then I took myself, like, that partner and I had broken up, and I had taken myself on a holiday. I was already doing this by myself anyway. I don't know why I needed to mention that, but I was already going to New Zealand by myself, and I went away there, and that was a great test for my relationship with food as well then, because throughout 2022, I know that I felt so much pressure to track my calories and to kind of want to compete again, because so many people would be asking. And I thought, like, because again, my perception at that time, because of consumption bias, like of what I was seeing and consuming, was like most coaches were competitors, but it was just because I competed, so then my whole feed was competitors and they all became fitness coaches. So I was like, oh, to be a good fitness coach, I have to look like I'm competing and compete. But no, that's not true. And I'm allowed to still want to compete. Like, it's still on the cards maybe one day in the future, but it's not something that I'm committing to or prioritizing right now. So that time in New Zealand was really helpful to test my relationship with food, because I had made the decision before going that I wasn't going to track while I was over there, and I didn't. And it was really nice. Like, I might have checked if I saw any snacks or food or whatever. I'd like look at the calories maybe, but for the most part I already kind of knew because I stuck to foods that I had liked, and most of the time went out for meals, or not most of the time actually. I might have, like, I've gone out for a couple of meals. I was there for 12 days, but I bought some food and just had like basic food at home, and I was conscious of my protein intake, and I was mindfully eating, and I was like allowing a snack in every day, and I was moving a lot as well. So I didn't want to go over there and feel sluggish, so I made the conscious decision to not have like all these huge meals and desserts, because I knew that they would be there the next day. And that was a big thing behind me having those huge overeating episodes post-comp, because I was in that mindset of like, I can't have this again because of comp prep. Of course you have to stick to the plan, so you can't, if you eat something, you can't fucking have that, you can't do that again. And I mean, you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. It was like, I was in the mindset of you can't have this. So when I was having it, I was like, I have to go all in, it's all or nothing, because I can't have this again. It was a very like scarcity mindset. And so that was something that I had to recondition in myself. And then overseas, like, I knew that it would be there. I knew that it would be there at home. Like, I knew that just because I'm traveling, it doesn't mean I need to do all of this if I don't want to. Like, I think sometimes I didn't even want to eat these things. Like, I didn't even want to eat that and this post-comp. I just thought that, like, okay, well, since it's post-comp, like, I need to celebrate and I need to enjoy this time now before I get back into it and compete again and all of that things. Like, I thought that I had to. And it was nice overseas having that breath of fresh air and being like, I can enjoy these foods. I don't have to have everything. Like, I just chose what I wanted to eat and I ate it, and it was like there was no thoughts behind it. There was thoughts behind the progress that I had made. Like, I was conscious of obviously like the protein intake and making sure I was eating enough and moving enough and everything like that. I was making sure I was being healthy, but also I was making sure, I was conscious of the progress that I had made and that I wasn't restricting myself. I wasn't overly worried, and I also was not eating for the sake of eating, which was really cool, and like eating for the sake of comfort, which was really cool to recognize within myself. And that's another big motivation behind me helping people with their mindset and with their relationship with food, and obviously not like eating disorders, but their relationship with their self more than anything. So that's, a big drive behind it. And even coming into now, so this is 6 months later from that trip, from that New Zealand trip, and I just feel more and more solid every month, every day in myself and in my self-worth, in my self-trust, self-confidence. It all flows on from that. Like, self-worth is just like, see, look, mindset is the core pillar of your health and your fitness, quality of life. And then I think, in my opinion, self-worth is the center of that again, because when you have self-worth, then you share the value, you have the value within yourself and around self-development to keep improving. If you don't have that self-worth, if it's coming from a place of hatred, it's not sustainable. And it's also coming from like a bad energy, if you want to talk like the frequencies of it, which I don't usually bother, because I feel like the value you have within yourself is enough within itself. But yeah, that's my journey. And honestly, I'm so happy now. When I track, when I choose to not track, I don't track. It really depends on my goals. And right now I'm in a building phase, which is fun. I have like lots of energy most of the time, unless like I haven't taken care of my sleep for a couple of nights or whatever, which is sometimes is just what happens throughout life as a business owner. But for the most part, I'm eating enough. I'm consuming enough protein. I take care of my recovery. I am knowledgeable around a lot more than I was when I began, which of course I was freaking 11 or 12, and now I'm 21 and 1 month or something. And I'm so happy to have had this progress, and that's why I want to help other people have this kind of progress, or I'm happy to be able to be in this position to help other people have their own progress and have their own journey, because it won't look like mine. I'm not trying to turn people into me. I'm trying to help people recognize the worth within themselves and help them be the best person that they can be, like to be the most healthy and happiest person that they can be, because we can't do this alone. And nowhere in that story did I do it alone. There was times where I challenged myself without a coach, but I had that knowledge because of professional help, because of psychologists, because of mindset, business, fitness coaches. I've had all the resources the entire time. I've never gone without support. Even when I was coaching myself with nutrition training, I've always had a psychologist. I've always had a good support network, which is the best thing that you should look for. If you don't have the funds, or if you don't want to allocate the budget to external like paid help, which is okay, like that's your choice. But I highly recommend and like urge you to seek a good support network at the very least, whether that is family or friends. And even like there's so many free resources out there. Even this video could be a source of a free resource tool, and other videos on my channel, other podcast episodes from myself or from others. And yeah, there's a lot of tools out there and a lot of help out there, and I would not be here if I didn't seek help at any point. Like, I know this wasn't really a conversation about mental health, it was more toward fitness and nutrition, and obviously mindset had to be a component of it just because of what life is. But I would not have been able to do that alone. I don't even want to know where I would be right now if I did try to do any of that alone. I'd probably be very sour and arrogant, to be honest, and not a freaking weapon. So I hope that this video was of some value to you. I know that it is. Maybe not to you, but if you feel like it might help someone or some portion of this video might be relatable to someone, because at the very least, if this is relatable, that is value within itself, because I don't want anyone to ever feel alone like I had at some stages of my journey. I never want anyone to feel alone, because just know, any thought, this might also hurt your ego, but any thought, action, decision you have ever had, it's not unique. Yeah, like, get over yourself. No, but seriously, like, you're not alone, ever alone. Everyone, like, there's at least one, there's would be thousands, millions, if not, that have experienced what you are currently or have ever experienced. So you're never alone, and I hope that you have the support around you. If not, reach out, please. And I hope you have a fantastic day, night, life, world.